The shield was dying. Sawman could see it flickering above the city, like a candle in the wind. Each time the Crethean warships fired their massive cannons, the protective dome rippled and sparked. Soon it would fail completely. Then her people would die. She stood on the defensive wall, clutching her energy rifle with trembling hands. Below her, thousands of Alaris civilians huddled in the streets. Children cried. The elderly sat in silence, too tired to show fear anymore. 3 months of constant bombardment had broken their spirits. The Alaris were farmers and artists, not warriors. They had never wanted war, but war had come to them anyway. How much longer? Sawman asked the technician beside her. The old male checked his instruments. His hands shook. 2 hours, maybe 3 if we're lucky. Sawman looked out at the enemy forces gathering beyond the shield. Thousands of Crethean soldiers in their black armor. Dozens of their war machines. They were just waiting. When the shield fell, they would pour in like a flood. The Alaris resistance fighters numbered only a few hundred. They had old weapons and no training. It would be a massacre. Inside the command center, Elder Hyunwoo stared at the communication array. He was the leader of Viridian Prime, but leadership meant nothing now. He had failed his people. The Alaris had sent hundreds of distress calls into space over the past 3 months. No one had answered. The galaxy had abandoned them. Elder, his aide said softly, perhaps we should surrender. At least some might survive. Hyunwoo shook his head. The Crethians don't take prisoners. You know this. They want our world, not us. He touched the controls one more time. Send the message again. All frequencies. Maximum power. The aide's face showed his hopelessness, but he obeyed. The message went out into the void once more. A desperate plea from a dying world. Hyunwoo didn't expect anyone to hear it. Even if someone did, they would arrive too late. On the wall, Sawman checked her rifle's charge. 50 shots left. She had watched the Crethians kill her parents in the first week of the invasion. Her brother died holding the northern district. She had nothing left but rage and determination. If she was going to die today, she would take as many enemies with her as possible. The shield flickered again. This time it stayed dim for almost 10 seconds before brightening. The crowd below cried out in fear. Some Alaris began to pray to the old gods. Others simply held their loved ones close. Sawman felt tears on her face, but didn't wipe them away. There was no shame in crying at the end. A young fighter named Minho climbed up beside her. He was barely old enough to hold a weapon. Sawman, is it true? Are we really going to die today? She wanted to lie to him, to give him hope, but he deserved the truth. Yes, Minho, probably. I'm scared, he whispered. So am I, she admitted. But we'll stand together. We won't let them break us before the end. The Crethean commander, War Master Thalvor, watched from his command ship in orbit. The shield below was almost exhausted. His forces were ready. This primitive species had resisted longer than expected, but it was over now. Soon Viridian Prime would belong to the Crethean Empire. His soldiers would burn the cities and take the fertile farmland. It was simple conquest, the way of the strong. Prepare for final assault, he ordered. When the shield falls, leave no survivors. His officers saluted and moved to their stations. Thalvor allowed himself a small smile. This would be his greatest victory. The Emperor would reward him well. Below, the shield gave its loudest alarm yet. Red lights flashed throughout the city. The power generators were failing. Everyone knew what that meant. Sawman raised her rifle. Around her, other fighters did the same. They formed a thin line along the wall. So few against so many. But they would fight. They had no choice. Elder Hyunwoo closed his eyes. He had done everything he could. Now he could only wait for the end. He thought of his wife, dead 2 months ago in a bombing. At least he would see her again soon. Perhaps death would be peaceful. The shield flickered one final time. Then, Something impossible happened. New signals appeared on every scanner in the system. Ships, dozens of them, dropping out of faster than light, travel right on top of the Crethean fleet. These weren't Ilaris ships. They weren't Crethean either. They were something else entirely. Something unknown. Hyunwoo's aide stared at his screen in shock. Elder, new contacts. They're responding to our distress call. Who are they? Hyunwoo demanded, hope suddenly flaring in his chest. I don't know. The computer doesn't recognize their design. But Elder, they're transmitting a message. They say they're from a place called Earth. They call themselves humans, and they're here to help. On the wall, Somin saw streaks of fire cutting through the sky. Not weapons fire. Something else. Dozens of objects falling from orbit at incredible speed. They had heat shields and stabilizing fins. They were drop pods. And they were heading straight for the space between the city and the Crethean army. What is that? Minho asked, pointing up. Somin didn't know. But for the first time in 3 months, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. She felt hope. The first drop pods slammed into the ground with earth-shaking force. Their sides exploded outward. And from each pod emerged figures in heavy armor. They moved quickly, professionally, setting up defensive positions with practiced ease. More pods landed. Dozens. Then hundreds. An entire army appeared in minutes. The strangers formed a wall of metal and weapons between the city and the enemy. Their armor was dark gray with blue highlights. Each soldier carried weapons that looked advanced and deadly. They moved like they had done this 1,000 times before. From the lead pod emerged an officer. He surveyed the battlefield calmly, then activated his communication system. His voice carried across every speaker in the city. It was strong, confident, and it spoke in perfectly translated Ilaris. People of Viridian Prime, this is Lieutenant Taeyang Kim of the Human Marine Corps. We received your distress call. Sorry we're late. But we're here now, and we're not leaving until you're safe. Hold on just a little longer. Help has arrived. Somin felt tears streaming down her face. But these were different tears. Around her, the Ilaris fighters were cheering. In the streets below, the civilians were crying and embracing each other. The children stopped crying. The elderly raised their heads. Elder Hyunwoo sank into his chair, overwhelming relief flooding through him. They had come. Someone had actually come. The shield flickered one more time, and finally died. But now it didn't matter. Between the city and the Crethean army stood humanity, and everything was about to shift. The Crethean soldiers hesitated. This wasn't part of the plan. War Master Thalvor stared at his tactical display in confusion. Unknown forces had just appeared between him and his prize. They had landed with precision and speed that impressed even him. But they were few. Only a few thousand against his army of 30,000. Numbers would win this day. All units advance, Thalvor commanded. Destroy these newcomers. Show them the price of interfering with the Crethean Empire. The Crethean army began moving forward. Their war machines rolled ahead, massive vehicles bristling with weapons. Infantry followed in tight formations. They had crushed a dozen worlds before this one. These new arrivals would fall just like all the others. Lieutenant Taeyang Kim watched the enemy advance through his helmet display. His tactical computer was already analyzing their formations, their weapons, their weaknesses. He opened a channel to his troops. All units, weapons free. Hold this line. Remember your training. Make every shot count. For those people behind us, we are their only hope. Don't let them down. Understood, sir. Came the responses from dozens of squad leaders. Beside Taeyang stood Corporal Minji Park, the unit's combat medic. She was checking her medical supplies while watching the approaching enemy. That's a lot of them, Lieutenant. Numbers aren't everything. Taeyang replied calmly. They're about to learn that. Captain Daehyun Lee watched from his command vehicle, coordinating the entire human force. He was a veteran of 20 battles across 6 worlds. He had seen situations far worse than this. His voice was steady as he issued orders. Artillery teams, prepare firing solutions. Air support, stand by. Infantry, hold fire until they're at optimal range. Let them come to us. Make them pay for every meter. On the defensive wall, Salmon watched in amazement as the human soldiers prepared for battle. Their movements were so organized, so professional. Each one knew exactly what to do without being told. They worked together like parts of a single machine. The Ellerus fighters had been brave, but they had been amateurs. These humans were something entirely different. One of the human soldiers climbed up to the wall. His armor was marked with medical symbols. When he removed his helmet, Salmon saw a young female face. The human smiled at her. "I'm Corporal Minji Park, combat medic. We're going to need help getting your wounded to safety. Can you assist?" Salmon stared. This strange alien had just arrived on a dying world, and she was smiling. Yes, of course. But the battle... Yes, let our soldiers handle the fighting, Minji said gently. Salmon felt something break inside her. All the fear and rage of the past 3 months suddenly felt lighter. She wasn't alone anymore. "Deal," she whispered. The Creathian army came within range. Captain Daehyun gave the order. "All units, open fire." The human defensive line erupted. Precise, controlled bursts of energy and projectiles tore into the Creathian formations. Human weapons were incredibly accurate. Every shot seemed to find a target. The lead Creathian war machines exploded in balls of fire as human anti-tank weapons found their weak points. Infantry fell in organized rows, but the Creathians kept coming. They were brave and disciplined. They returned fire, and human shields sparkled under the impact. Some humans fell, but their comrades immediately dragged them to cover. Medics rushed forward without hesitation. Sergeant Ji-Won Choi commanded the heavy weapons section. She was a large woman, with a fierce expression and a bigger heart. Her team operated the massive support weapons that tore through enemy armor like paper. She saw a group of Creathian soldiers trying to flank the line. "Second squad, with me," she barked. "We're not letting them through." Her team moved quickly to intercept. The Creathians were bigger and stronger individually, but Ji-Won's squad worked together perfectly. They covered each other, communicated constantly, and fought with tactical precision the Creathians couldn't match. Within minutes, the flanking attempt was shattered. Private Yuna Han was on her first combat deployment. She was young and scared, but she remembered her training. When a Creathian soldier charged her position, she didn't panic. She aimed carefully, controlled her breathing, and fired. The enemy fell. Then another came. She fired again. Her hands were shaking, but she kept fighting. An Ellerese fighter named Minho was nearby, watching in awe. "How are you so calm?" he shouted over the noise. "I'm not calm," Yuna shouted back, reloading her weapon. "I'm terrified, but my squad needs me, so I keep going. That's what we do." Minho stared at her. These humans felt fear just like the Alaris did. But they fought anyway. That was real courage. Inside the city, Minji worked alongside Alaris healers in a makeshift hospital. She was showing them human medical techniques, using her advanced equipment to save lives that would have been lost. The Alaris healers watched in amazement as she stabilized patients with technology they had never seen. "Your medicine is so advanced," one healer said in wonder. Minji smiled while working. "We learned a lot of this the hard way. Humans are fragile. We had to get good at fixing ourselves. Now we share what we learned with friends." Elder Hyunwoo came to the hospital to see for himself. He watched Minji save an Ellerist child who had been wounded in the bombing. She worked with such focus and care. When the child was stable, Minji moved immediately to the next patient. There were dozens waiting. "Why are you helping us?" Hyunwoo asked her. "You don't know us." Minji looked up at him. You needed help. We could provide it. That's enough reason. She returned to her work. Hyunwoo felt tears in his eyes. These strangers had crossed the galaxy to help people they had never met. What kind of species did that? On the battlefield, the Crethean advance had stalled. Thalvor couldn't believe it. His forces outnumbered the humans 6-1, but they couldn't break through. These humans fought with a ferocity and skill he had never encountered. Every time his troops found an opening, the humans were already there to close it. Every attack was countered. Every strategy was anticipated. Send in the heavy assault units, he ordered. Break their line. The largest Crethean war machines rolled forward. They were massive, heavily armored, and armed with devastating weapons. But Captain Dae-hyun had been waiting for this. Air support. You're cleared hot. Show them what we brought. Human attack aircraft screamed down from the sky. They moved faster than anything the Cretheans had ever seen. Missiles and cannon fire rained down on the heavy assault units. Explosions bloomed across the battlefield. Within minutes, the Crethean heavy units were burning wreckage. Thalvor's confidence was cracking. How? How are they doing this? His tactical officer studied the data. Sir, they're coordinating at a level we've never seen. Every unit knows what every other unit is doing. They adapt instantly to our tactics, and their individual soldiers are incredibly well trained. They don't break formation. They don't panic. They just keep fighting. They're only human, Thalvor growled. Yes, sir. But I think that might be the problem. As the sun began to set on Viridian Prime, the Crethean army was in retreat. They had lost thousands of soldiers and most of their heavy equipment. The humans had held the line without giving a single meter. Behind that line, thousands of Ellery civilians had been evacuated to safety in human transport ships. Lieutenant Taeyang stood with Salmon on the wall. The city was safe. For now, thank you, Salmon said softly. You saved us. Taeyang looked at her. We heard you calling for help. How could we not come? He smiled. Besides, we humans have a saying. Hope is never lost as long as someone is willing to fight for it. Today, we fought for your hope. Salmon understood then. These humans were warriors, yes. But they were more than that. They were protectors. Guardians. They had power, but they used it to help others. Around them, human and Elleris soldiers stood together, sharing water and stories. Two species who had never met before, now standing side by side. Everything had shifted indeed. In orbit above Viridian Prime, Commander Jaewon Song stood on the bridge of the human warship Indomitable. His fleet of 30 vessels surrounded the Crethean armada. The enemy had 60 ships, but Jaewon wasn't worried. Numbers meant little when you had better tactics. Enemy fleet is moving to attack positions, his tactical officer reported. They're trying to surround us, Jaewon smiled. Let them think they're succeeding. Maintain defensive formation. Wait for my signal. On the Crethean flagship, Thalvor was regaining his confidence. The battle on the ground had gone badly. But space was different. Here he had the advantage. His ships were larger and more numerous. He would crush this human fleet, then return to finish the ground invasion. All ships, attack pattern 7, encircle and destroy. The Crethean ships moved into position, their weapons charging. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. The human ships suddenly broke formation, each one moving in a different direction with incredible speed. The Crethean targeting computers couldn't keep up. By the time they recalculated, the humans had repositioned perfectly. Fire! Jaewon commanded. The human fleet opened fire with devastating accuracy. They had spent the past hour analyzing the Crethean ships, finding every weakness. Now, they exploited them. Missiles struck vulnerable engine sections. Energy beams cut through shield generators. The Crethean formation fell apart. In minutes. Inside the Indomitable's intelligence section, Officer Unji Kang studied the enemy communication patterns. She was brilliant at finding patterns others missed, and she had found something very interesting about the Crethean fleet. "Commander Song," she called out. "I've discovered something. The Crethean ships all communicate through their command vessel. It's a centralized network. If we can disrupt that ship, we can blind their entire fleet." Jaewon turned to her. "You're sure?" "Positive, sir. Look at the data flow. Everything routes through the flagship. It's efficient, but vulnerable. One ship controls everything." Jaewon looked at the tactical display. The Crethean flagship was the largest ship in their fleet, heavily defended. But if Unji was right, it was the key to winning this battle. "Prepare a boarding team. We're taking that ship." On the ground, Sergeant Jiwon led a mixed team of humans and Ilaris toward a Crethean artillery position. The enemy had been shelling the city from these guns for months. Now, it was time to silence them permanently. "Stay low," Jiwon whispered to the Ilaris fighters with her. "Move quietly. Watch for sentries." A young Ilaris named Sunho moved beside her. He had volunteered for this mission, desperate to fight back after months of helplessness. Jiwon had accepted him, despite his lack of training. She saw potential in his determination. "Why do you move so carefully?" Sunho asked. "Humans are so strong. Why not just attack directly?" Jiwon smiled under her helmet. "Strength isn't about power, kid. It's about using your brain. Smart soldiers live longer. And living soldiers win wars." They reached the edge of the artillery camp. 12 heavy guns protected by 200 Crethean soldiers. G1's team numbered only 30. But they had surprise and superior tactics. "Remember the plan," Jiwon said on the team channel. "We hit them fast and hard. Destroy the guns, then extract. Ready?" Everyone confirmed. Jiwon raised her fist, then dropped it. "Go." The attack was swift and brutal. Human soldiers moved through the camp like ghosts, their weapons silenced. Crethean sentries fell before they could raise an alarm. Explosive charges were placed on the artillery guns. By the time the enemy realized what was happening, it was too late. The charges detonated in a chain of explosions. All 12 guns were destroyed in seconds. The Crethean soldiers tried to respond, but Jiwon's team was already withdrawing. They moved through predetermined routes, covering each other perfectly. The Cretheans fired blindly into the darkness, hitting nothing. Within 10 minutes, the team was back at friendly lines. 0 casualties. Mission accomplished. Sunho was breathing hard, his hands shaking from adrenaline. Jiwon patted his shoulder. "You did good, kid. Real good. Keep this up, and you'll be a proper soldier." Sunho felt pride swell in his chest. These humans believed in him. They treated him like an equal, not like someone who needed protecting. It made him want to be better. Back in the city, Private Yuna was teaching basic combat tactics to a group of young Ilaris fighters. They gathered around her, eager to learn. Yuna was only a few years older than them, but she had training and experience they desperately needed. "Fighting isn't about being brave," she explained. "Courage is important, yes, but tactics keep you alive. Always know where your cover is. Always know where your squad members are. Never fight alone if you can help it." She demonstrated proper shooting positions, how to move under fire, how to communicate with hand signals. The Ilaris absorbed everything. They had spent months being victims. Now they were learning to be defenders. Minho, the young fighter who had stood beside Salmon on the wall, was one of Yuna's best students. He practiced the movements again and again until they became natural. Yuna watched him with approval. "Minho, the other in taking to 50, you're a fast learner," she told him. "Keep this up, and you'll be teaching others soon." "I want to protect my people," Minho said seriously. "Like you, humans protect us." Yuna smiled. "That's the right motivation. Fight to protect, not to destroy. That's what makes a good soldier." In the medical center, Minji was exhausted but still working. She had been operating on wounded soldiers for 12 hours straight. Elaris healers worked beside her, learning human surgical techniques. They were amazed at how effective these methods were. Captain Daehyun entered the hospital to check on his wounded. He found Minji closing up her latest patient, an Elaris civilian who had been trapped under rubble. She worked with steady hands, despite her obvious fatigue. "Corporal Park, you need rest," Daehyun said gently. "There are still patients waiting, sir." Minji replied, without looking up. "There will always be patients waiting. You can't help anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. That's an order, Corporal. 4 hours of sleep. Now." Minji wanted to argue, but orders were orders. She nodded and handed her instruments to an Elaris healer who had been assisting her. "You know what to do. If anything serious comes in, wake me immediately." The healer bowed respectfully. "Yes, Corporal Park. Thank you for teaching us." As Minji left to find a bed, Elder Hyunwoo approached Captain Daehyun. The Elaris leader looked different now. There was hope in his eyes, where before there had been only despair. "Captain, I must know. Why did your people really come? Surely there must be something you want from us." Daehyun looked at him steadily. "We came because you asked for help. That's all. My people believe that those who have power have a responsibility to protect those who don't. It's not about payment or advantage. It's about doing what's right." Hyunwoo shook his head in wonder. "Where we come from, the strong always dominate the weak. That's the way of the galaxy. But you humans are different. Maybe," Daehyun admitted. "Or maybe we just remember what it's like to be the ones who need help. Our history isn't gentle. We fought among ourselves for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. We learned these lessons the hard way. Now we try to be better than we were." In orbit, the boarding operation was underway. Lieutenant Taeyang led the assault team. They had launched from the Indomitable in small, fast shuttles that avoided the Crethean defenses. Now they were cutting through the flagship's hull with plasma torches, breaching in 3, 2, 1. The section of hull fell inward, and the human soldiers poured through. They moved through the Crethean ship like a storm. The enemy Marines were larger and stronger, but the humans fought with precision and teamwork the Cretheans couldn't match. Every corridor was a battle. Every room was contested. But the humans kept advancing. They had a mission, and nothing would stop them. Taeyang led from the front, his rifle barking orders and firing in equal measure. His team followed him without hesitation. They fought their way to the command center. The final blast door stood between them and their objective. Taeyang placed charges, while his team held off Crethean reinforcements. The explosion blew the door open. Inside, Thalvor himself waited with his elite guards. The Crethean War Master was massive, towering over the humans. But he saw no fear in their eyes. Only determination. He raised his weapon. "You cannot win," Thalvor declared. "We are Crethean. We have conquered 100 worlds." Taeyang aimed his rifle at the War Master's center mass. "Then you're about to learn what happens when you try to conquer a world that humans decide to defend. Surrender now, or we take this ship by force." The battle for the command center was short but intense. In the end, Thalvor lay wounded on the deck, his guards defeated. Unji rushed to the command console and uploaded her virus. The Crethean network collapsed immediately. Across the fleet, enemy ships went dark as their systems failed. Commander Jaewon watched from the Indomitable as the Crethean fleet drifted helplessly. "All ships, target their weapons and engines. Disable them, but don't destroy. We want prisoners, not corpses." The battle was over. Viridian Prime was saved. The Crethean flagship was now under human control. Lieutenant Taeyang walked through the corridors with his team, securing the massive vessel section by section. Crethean crew members surrendered without fight now that their command network was down. They had never experienced defeat before. The shock showed on their faces. In the command center, Unji worked at the captured computer systems. She was downloading everything: fleet movements, strategic plans, communication codes. This information would save countless lives across the galaxy. Other Crethean target worlds could be warned. Their military strategies could be countered. Captain Daehyun's voice came through Taeyang's communicator. "Lieutenant, we're reading Crethean life signs in the lower decks. Some kind of holding cells. Check it out." Taeyang led his squad down. What they found made his blood run cold. The Cretheans had taken prisoners from other worlds they had conquered, hundreds of beings from a dozen different species, all locked in cramped cells, starving and terrified. "Get medical teams up here immediately," Taeyang ordered. "And someone find me the keys to these cells." One of his soldiers worked on the locking mechanism while Taeyang approached the nearest cell. Inside, a group of beings that looked like large insects cowered away from him. They had been beaten and abused. When Taeyang removed his helmet, trying to show he meant no harm, they stared in confusion. "It's okay," Taeyang said gently. "We're not Crethean. We're here to help. You're safe now." The cell doors opened. The prisoners emerged slowly, afraid this was some kind of trick. But when they saw the Crethean guards were now the ones in restraints, they began to understand. They were truly free. Some collapsed in relief. Others wept. Many simply stood there, unable to process what was happening. Among the freed prisoners, Taeyang found a group of Ilaris who had been captured months ago. One of them was Saman's brother, whom everyone had thought dead. Taeyang made sure he was on the first shuttle back to the surface. On the planet, Saman was helping organize the refugee camps when she heard someone calling her name. She turned and froze. Her brother Kyungmin was running toward her, thin and scarred, but alive. She dropped everything and ran to meet him. They collided in an embrace, both crying. "I thought you were dead," Saman sobbed. "They told us everyone in the northern district died. The humans saved us," Kyungmin said, his voice shaking. "They rescued us from the Crethean ship." "Saman, these humans are incredible. They crossed the galaxy just to help strangers." Watching nearby, Yuna smiled. This was why she had joined the military. Not for glory or adventure, but for moments like this. Families reunited, people saved, hope restored. It made all the danger and fear worthwhile. But the celebration was interrupted by urgent news. Commander Jaewon's voice came through all channels. "All personnel. New situation. We've intercepted Crethean communications. Another world is under attack. The planet Helios 4. The Cretheans have 3 fleets converging on it. The local population can't defend themselves." Captain Daehyun gathered his officers. Elder Hyunwoo joined them, along with Saman and several other Ilaris resistance leaders. Daehyun pulled up a star map showing Helios 4's location. "It's 2 days away at maximum speed," Daehyun explained. "If we leave now, we might arrive in time to help. But that means leaving Viridian Prime partially defended. The Cretheans might send reinforcements here." Elder Hyunwoo spoke immediately. "You must go. We can't let what happened to us happen to others. My people will defend ourselves if needed. You've taught us how to fight. Now go save them like you saved us." Saman stepped forward. "Sir, I want to volunteer. Many of us do. We want to help fight the Cretheans. We want to protect others like the humans protected us." Daehyun studied her carefully. "You understand this means real combat? Leaving your world? Facing dangers you can barely imagine?" "We faced those dangers for 3 months while alone," Saman replied firmly. "Now, we have allies. Now, we have training. And now, we have hope. We want to turn that hope into action." Daehyun looked at Taeyang, who nodded. "She's tough, sir. They all are. They've proven themselves. I say we give them the chance." "Very well," Daehyun decided. "All Elaris volunteers who want to join us, Report to the training grounds. You'll go through a crash course in human military operations. Those who pass will ship out with us in 2 days. Over the next 48 hours, Viridian Prime became a whirlwind of activity. Human soldiers trained Elaris volunteers in basic combat, ship operations, and military protocols. It was intense and exhausting, but the Elaris were motivated like nothing the humans had seen before. They had lived through horror. They knew what was at stake. Jiwan took a special interest in training the heavy weapons teams. She was demanding but fair, pushing the Elaris hard but also encouraging them when they succeeded. Sunho proved to be excellent with anti-armor weapons. He had a steady hand and quick reflexes. "You're a natural," Jiwan told him after he scored perfect hits on 5 practice targets in a row. "Keep this up, and you'll be on my team permanently." "I won't let you down, Sergeant," Sunho promised. Yuna trained close combat tactics with Minho and a dozen other young Elaris. She taught them how humans fought when enemies got close. Efficient, brutal, and always protecting your squadmates. Minho absorbed every lesson, practicing movements until they were automatic. "Remember," Yuna emphasized, "in close combat, hesitation kills. When you commit to an action, commit fully. Your team depends on you." In the medical center, Minji was giving Elaris healers advanced training in emergency field medicine. They would be coming on the mission too, serving alongside human medics. One Elaris healer named Borum was particularly talented. She learned quickly and stayed calm under pressure. "You have good instincts," Minji told her. "Medicine isn't just about knowledge. It's about keeping your head when everything goes wrong. You've got that quality." Borum bowed respectfully. "I learned it these past months, Corporal. When your people are dying around you, you either panic or you work. I chose to work." Meanwhile, Yunji's intelligence work had revealed something concerning. The Krethian attack on Helios 4 wasn't random. The intercepted communications showed this was part of a larger campaign. The Krethians were targeting peaceful, defenseless worlds across this entire region of space. Viridian Prime was just one of dozens of planned conquests. She brought this information to Commander Jaewon. "Sir, this is bigger than we thought. The Krethians have marked 30 worlds for invasion. Most of them have no military at all. If we don't stop this now, millions will die." Jaewon studied the data grimly. "One fleet can't defend 30 worlds. We need to do something bigger. We need to cut off the snake's head. What do you suggest, Commander? We save Helios 4 first. Then we use that as a rallying point. We bring together all the species the Krethians have threatened. Build a coalition. Show the galaxy that the Krethians can be stopped." He looked at her seriously. "But for that to work, we need a decisive victory. Not just survival. We need to show everyone that resistance is possible." The day of departure arrived. The combined human Elaris force assembled in the main square. 300 Elaris volunteers stood in formation alongside 2,000 human soldiers. They wore matching armor now, modified to fit Elaris physiology. They carried human weapons. They were no longer just refugees. They were warriors. Elder Hyun Woo addressed them all. "You go now to save others as we were saved. You carry with you not just weapons, but hope. Show the galaxy that victims can become defenders, that the helpless can become strong. Make us proud." Captain Daehyun stepped forward. "To all personnel, both human and Elaris, we face a dangerous enemy, but we do not face them alone. We face them as allies, as brothers and sisters in arms. The Krethians believe the strong should dominate the weak. We will show them that the strong should protect the weak. And together, we are stronger than they can imagine. Prepare to ship out." The troops boarded the transport vessels. Salmon found herself seated next to Taeyang on the ride up to orbit. She was nervous but excited. For months, she had been running and hiding. Now, she was fighting back. It felt right. "Scared?" Taeyang asked. Terrified, Salmon admitted, but also ready. Is that strange? No. Taeyang smiled. That's exactly how every good soldier feels before battle. Fear keeps you sharp. Readiness keeps you alive. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for Helios 4, the word was already spreading across the galaxy. The Cretheans had been defeated. An unknown species called humans had driven them away from Viridian Prime. And now, those humans were coming to Helios 4. The conquered worlds began to whisper. The oppressed began to hope. Maybe the Cretheans weren't invincible after all. Maybe someone was finally fighting back. Everything had shifted. The fleet arrived at Helios 4 to find a battle already raging. 3 Crethean fleets surrounded the planet, bombarding it from orbit. Below, cities burned. The local population, a peaceful species called the Taran, were being slaughtered. Their crude defense forces fought bravely but hopelessly against overwhelming odds. We're outnumbered 5-1, Commander Jaewon's tactical officer reported. Sir, this is going to be difficult. Jaewon smiled coldly. Good. The Cretheans need to learn that numbers don't mean victory. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Aim for their command vessels first. Show them what happened at Viridian Prime wasn't luck. The human fleet struck like a hammer. They didn't try to match the Crethean formations. Instead, they moved in small, fast groups, targeting weak points and exploiting gaps. Each human ship fought with the coordination of the entire fleet behind it. The Cretheans had more ships, but the humans had better tactics and better training. On the lead assault ship, Salmon prepared for her first real combat deployment. She was part of Jiwon's heavy weapons team now. Her hands were steady as she checked her anti-armor weapon. Beside her, Sunho did the same. Other Alaris volunteers prepared quietly. They had trained for this moment. Now, they would prove themselves. Jiwon walked down the line, checking each soldier. When she reached Salmon, she paused. Remember your training. Stay with your team. Watch your sectors. And most importantly, come back alive. You read me? Yes, Sergeant, Salmon replied firmly. Good. Let's go show these Cretheans that the Alaris aren't victims anymore. The assault ships dropped toward the planet's surface. Below, Terran defenders were making their last stand around their capital city. Crethean forces had them surrounded and were closing in for the kill. Then the human drop pods began to fall like meteors. Lieutenant Taeyang's boots hit the ground hard. Around him, his mixed human Alaris squad deployed smoothly. They had practiced this dozens of times. Now, it was real. Crethean forces were everywhere, but that just meant there were plenty of targets. All units, advance, Taeyang ordered. Break their siege. Get those civilians to safety. The combined force struck the Crethean lines with devastating effect. Human tactics, combined with Alaris determination, created something the Cretheans had never faced before. This wasn't just one species fighting back anymore. It was 2 species working together, each covering the other's weaknesses. Salmon's heavy weapon barked, sending explosive rounds into a Crethean tank. It exploded in a ball of fire. She moved to cover, just like Jiwon had taught her. Reloaded. Acquired a new target. Fired again. Another hit. She was doing it. She was actually fighting back, and winning. Sunho covered her flank with his own weapon, destroying enemy positions that threatened their advance. They worked together perfectly, years of shared culture and experience, making their cooperation natural. The human soldiers around them provided the tactical framework, but the Alaris provided heart and personal understanding of what they were fighting for. Private Yuna fought alongside Minho and a squad of young Alaris soldiers. They moved through the city streets, clearing buildings and rescuing trapped civilians. The Terran people cowered in basements and collapsed structures, terrified and hopeless. When they saw the armored soldiers arriving, they expected death. Instead, they found salvation. It's okay, Yuna kept repeating as they pulled families from rubble. We're here to help. You're safe now. Can you walk? Good. Head toward that green smoke. That's the evacuation point. Minho helped an elderly Terran who could barely move. The old being looked at him with confusion. You're not human? But you fight with them? I'm Ilaris, Minho explained as he supported the elder's weight. The humans saved my world. Now, we help them save others. That's what allies do. The Terran elder's eyes filled with tears. The galaxy isn't just Crethians and victims anymore. There's a third option now. There are protectors. In the medical center being established near the evacuation point, Minji worked alongside Borum and other Ilaris healers. The wounded came in waves, both Terran and Allied soldiers. They treated everyone with the same care and urgency. There was no distinction between species here. Everyone who needed help received it. A critically wounded Terran child arrived, her injuries severe. Minji assessed her quickly. We need to operate now. Borum, assist me. This is going to be complicated. They worked together for over an hour, combining human medical technology with Ilaris healing techniques. The surgery was difficult, but they didn't give up. Finally, the child's vital signs stabilized. She would live. Minji and Boram looked at each other, exhausted, but satisfied. We saved her, Boram said softly. We did, Minji agreed. That's what this is all about. Saving lives. Making things better. One person at a time. In orbit, the space battle was turning decisively against the Crethians. Commander Jawan's fleet had destroyed their command ships, crippling their coordination just like at Viridian Prime. The enemy fleet was scattering, trying to retreat. But Jawan wasn't letting them escape to threaten another world. All ships, pursue and disable. I want every Crethian vessel either captured or destroyed. No one leaves this system to report back to their empire. We're making a statement today. Unji monitored communications from her station. She heard Crethian commanders desperately calling for reinforcements, for orders, for any guidance. But their command network was shattered. They had built their entire military around centralized control. Now that control was gone, they were helpless. Commander, she reported. I'm picking up broadcasts from other nearby systems. Word is spreading about what's happening here. Some species are sending messages of support. Others are asking for help. And sir, some are asking if they can join us. Jawan absorbed this information. This was bigger than one battle now. This was the beginning of something that could change the entire region of space. Maybe even the galaxy. On the ground, Captain Daehyun coordinated the final push. The Crethian ground forces were collapsing. Some surrendered. Others fled. The humans and Ilaris pressed forward relentlessly. By the end of the day, the capital city was secured. The Terran people were safe. Daehyun stood in the city center as Terran leaders emerged from their shelters. They stared at him in wonder. One elder approached slowly. You came, the elder said simply. We sent distress calls into space, just like the Ilaris did. We didn't think anyone would answer. But you came. We heard you, Daehyun replied. And we'll always come when someone calls for help. That's a promise. 3 days later, the system was secured. The Crethian forces were defeated, their ships captured, their soldiers imprisoned. Not a single Crethian escaped to report what had happened. As far as their empire knew, 3 entire fleets had simply vanished. But across the local systems, everyone knew. The story spread like wildfire. 2 worlds saved, Crethian forces crushed, and at the center of it all, humans and their growing coalition of allies. Ambassador Sun-Hee Huang arrived from Earth to formalize what was happening. She was a skilled diplomat who understood that this moment was crucial. In a hastily arranged conference, representatives from 6 species gathered. Humans, Ilaris, Terran, and 3 others who had sent envoys. We stand at a turning point. Soon he addressed them. For too long, the Crethean Empire has terrorized this region of space. They target the peaceful and defenseless, believing that strength gives them the right to dominate. But we offer a different path. An alliance of mutual protection, where the strong defend the weak not for profit or power, but because it's right. Elder Hyunwoo spoke for the Alaris. The humans saved us when we had nothing. They asked for nothing in return. They fought for us as if we were their own people. That is the kind of alliance I want for my world. A Terran representative stood. We agree. Let us build something new together. A coalition where no world stands alone. Where those who can fight, protect those who cannot. Where the Cretheans fear to tread, one by one, each species agreed. The coalition of free worlds was born that day. Not an empire, not a conquest, but a true alliance built on mutual defense and shared values. In the weeks that followed, the coalition grew. More species joined, inspired by what they had seen. Human military advisors began training defense forces across a dozen worlds. Technology was shared, trade agreements were signed. But most importantly, hope spread. On Viridian Prime, now serving as one of the coalition's headquarters, Saman trained new recruits. She wore the insignia of a sergeant now, earned through courage in combat. Young beings from multiple species looked to her for guidance. Fighting isn't about hating your enemy, she taught them, repeating words Taeyang had once told her. It's about protecting what you love. Never forget that. We fight so others don't have to. We stand so others can live in peace. Lieutenant Taeyang, now promoted to captain, commanded a mixed-species rapid response unit. They were the ones who answered distress calls, who arrived when hope was lost. His team included humans, Elaris, Terran, and others. They trained together, fought together, and trusted each other with their lives. Minji ran the coalition's medical training program. Healers from across the alliance learned from her and from each other, combining techniques from multiple species to create something better than any of them had alone. Boram was now her second in command, teaching others with the same care and skill Minji had shown her. Jiwon commanded the coalition's heavy assault forces. Her team of multi-species soldiers could break through any defense. Sunho served as her second, having proven himself in a dozen battles. Together they were unstoppable. Commander Jaewon became the coalition's fleet commander. His ships patrolled the space lanes, protecting trade and responding to threats. The Cretheans learned to avoid systems under coalition protection. Those who tried to attack found themselves facing coordinated, multi-species fleets that fought with tactics and determination they couldn't match. 6 months after Helios 4, Unji detected something significant. A massive Crethean fleet was assembling, preparing for a major offensive against the coalition. But this time, the coalition was ready. 20 worlds contributed ships and soldiers. Hundreds of thousands of beings prepared to defend their freedom. The battle, when it came, was fierce. The Cretheans threw everything they had at the coalition. But they faced an alliance that fought not for conquest, but for survival. For home. For each other. Species that had once been strangers now fought side by side, each covering the weaknesses of the others. The coalition won decisively. The Crethean fleet was shattered. Their empire, seeing the strength of this new alliance, sued for peace. The age of Crethean expansion was over. In the years that followed, the coalition of free worlds became a beacon of hope in the galaxy. Dozens more species joined, attracted not by force, but by the promise of mutual protection and shared prosperity. The humans never sought to lead. They fought beside everyone else, shared their knowledge freely, and kept their promise to always come when someone called for help. On Viridian Prime, now a thriving world once more, a monument was erected. It showed a human soldier and an Alaris fighter standing back to back, weapons ready, protecting the civilians behind them. The inscription read simply, "When hope was lost, they came," and everything shifted. Salmon stood before that monument with her squad, preparing for another mission. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone was calling for help, and the coalition would answer. That was what they did now. That was what they had become. She looked up at the stars, remembering the day the drop pods had fallen like meteors, bringing salvation when all seemed lost. That day had changed everything, not just for Viridian Prime, but for the entire galaxy. Because now everyone knew. You were never truly alone. If you called for help, someone would answer. And if you needed protecting, humanity and its allies would stand between you and harm. That was the promise. And it would never be broken.